Welcome to Life Will Be. I'm your host, Lydia T. Blanco. Thank you for trusting me with your time. If you are tuning in for the first time ever, welcome. If you've been on this journey with me for the last 6 years in different iterations, deep conversations, and so much transformation, thank you for being in community with me and on this journey. Have hit another significant milestone in my life. One I wasn't completely certain if I would get to, partly because I never thought about it that long term, but also because I've had some very real moments where I have questioned it all. Can you guess what I'm talking about? You're like, okay, I'm tuning in for the first time, or girl, what? Get to the point. Okay, here it is. I have been in New York City for a decade, living, thriving, vibing, making it through, making a way, all the things, a decade, 10 years. I feel like, wow, 7 is the number of completion, 10 is the number of perfection. And while I'm a recovering perfectionist, I really feel like this moment is so special because it feels like completion and it feels like I've come to do what I needed to do, experience all of New York City and myself here. And now I'm ready to share some of the things that I've learned while living in New York City for a decade. My goodness. When I got to New York, I was 26, just turned 26. I was ready for a new chapter in my life. I was hoping to experience this second coming of a renaissance as a writer living in Harlem and all the things. My ticket to New York was my admittance into graduate school at Columbia University. I knew that I would come here and be a journalist and pound the pavement and do all the things, but I did not know what I was in store for, truthfully. I had visited New York for family, my grandparents, uncles, cousins, all the things over the years. And I always had this dream of living in New York City. But when I got here, it was nothing like I had imagined. And I'd say nothing like I had imagined in totality. And I'm still living and breathing it. But as I reflect, I'm like, okay, were we ready? Absolutely. There were so many ways in which I prepared. But did I know that I was going to experience the grit, ambition, scarcity, love, challenge, rigor, all the things? No. But they do say if you can make it in New York City, you can make it anywhere. And never would have made it. Cue Marvin Sapp, okay? But this podcast is proof of life and that I'm still here. When I got to New York, I was 26 years old. I am 36. And I'm like, whoa, talk about a full circle moment. I think one of the things that comes to mind for me is my maturation process, how important and sacred that has been to me, becoming my own woman. When I got to New York, I was in search of an apartment, I want to say June and July, and I started to come in May to scope out the scenery, and I landed on a 6th floor walk up in Harlem in a co-op, and baby, it was rough, but it was mine. Okay. I spent 8.5 years in that space, 2 bedroom, below market rate, thugging it up and down those stairs. It never changed the fact, though, that that space was mine. I created community in that space, invited so many people over to stay temporarily, like legit short term, okay, when people were in transition, cooking, hosting, and just finding my rhythm, creating ceremony for myself. The things that I experienced in my apartment in Harlem were things that I had never experienced prior to. Yes, I've lived in apartments in college and all the things, but that sense of security, knowing that no one was asking me to leave and that I didn't have to get up at different times of the day or night and wonder if I would be good in that space was a new experience for me as someone who had experienced displacement and housing insecurity before. Harlem became home. The people in my building became my community. And the experience is unmatched, okay? From beginning to end, okay? And all things must come to an end, you know. People who have visited the space and seeing my many iterations of decorating it and getting used to like the creaky floorboards or refrigerators that literally sound like they were running away. You know how that prank call goes like, oh, is that your refrigerator? I think it's running. No, mine's literally sounded like it was about to try to make its way out the front door. As a matter of fact, I think I had about 3 refrigerators and 2 stoves over 8 years. Crazy. 8.5 years, 9 years. Wild, right? But God is faithful. And He made a way for me in that unit. He allowed me to have neighbors who really looked out. Shout outs to Real and his mama and then all of them. I used to say that I had all weather men, let me keep it clean because, audience varies, who stood in front of the building. But those men literally helped me carry my futon up the stairs, groceries, oatmeal, my dog, not my groceries, oatmeal, but like my dog. They taught me how to let him walk up the stairs or teach him how to walk up the stairs. Like, these are people who really became family. And so I feel like one of my points here is it is important to establish community where you are, no matter where you live. I think we've gotten to a point in humanity where we've shied away from the belief of loving your neighbor, right? People move into these big cities, small cities included, rural areas, if that's where you are, right? And there isn't a reliance or a sense of community. So a sense of community or a reliance on the people who you are in community with. People don't know their neighbors. You can't knock on a door and ask for anything. Sometimes people don't even like talking to each other, let alone looking that way so that no one will try to strike up a conversation. Me, on the other hand, I need my people to survive. And I strategically have lived in predominantly Black and brown spaces to establish communities and to protect myself, right? I've always had this belief that if I was in a predominantly white area, my experience, a Black woman in America, Black Latin women in America, that I wouldn't be seen, right? New York is such a big city that there are people who some can go days, weeks, months without hearing from, and they're never checked on, and they are rotting away in their apartments. Does that sound extreme? Yes. Is it true? Has that been a headline a number of times? Absolutely. Right. And so, as someone who moved to New York City with a number of suitcases and a cousin who decided to come on me last minute to help me in the process of adding things to their suitcase, I knew that when I got here, I needed to establish community and make fast friends. One of the ways that I did that, of course, was by talking to people in my building, talking to the men in front of my building. They were a hedge of protection for me. I knew that if something were to go down, I could rely on those men. People knew my name. I could walk however many blocks or miles in Harlem and see the same people, them call me by name or call me by my dog's name, truly, and that I would be looked out for. Some people don't have that, and I knew that if I lived in a space where people didn't necessarily look like me or care to be welcoming, I wouldn't have that sense of community. One of the ways that I was able to validate this idea and theory was by being in conversation with my girlfriends who did not live in Harlem, who eventually made their way to the neighborhood because they were like, dang, I'm living on the Lower East Side or Upper East, and it's just not the same sense of community. Like, I want that. And I was like, yeah, okay. And so I knew the people at the laundromat, Cafe One, that's my cafe. Shout outs to Cafe One. I love them. And just the places I frequented, the grocery stores. It's so important to be in community because that is what keeps you. Those are the people who keep you in crisis and emergency. There have been days where it has snowed or there's been like severe inclement weather, and I make my way somewhere and people, are you good? Oh, let me get it. You need that. And for so much of my singleness in New York, I relied so heavily on my community. For the longest time, I'm still a member, but I don't congregate in person at church, volunteering, just giving more than I asked for, I should say, because the downloads were here, not within expectations of others, but just establishing that for myself. I am a lover of people. I'm a lover of love. So wherever I can get a hug from in the most appropriate ways possible, that's what I did. I used to go to church for hugs, truly. Okay. You see your neighbor, reach and give them, oh, that was me. I need a hug. I can't expound enough and make the point enough that community has been essential. You know what else I've learned in New York? Don't wear your dress shoes to work. You're probably like, what? This is so random. How did we get here? You know, I would leave Harlem, get on a train. I worked at NBC, Black Enterprise, was doing like freelance projects, all the things. And I remember early in my career wearing my dress shoes to and from home, pounding the pavement in Midtown, tearing up my feet and my back. Okay. The arches, the heels, the balls, feeling little strains and wondering like, what is going on? Carrying too much on one side instead of having a backpack, really going for the professional look, wanting to be taken seriously as a Black woman in media cost me a little bit because I wasn't thinking about the ergonomics. I wasn't thinking about my wellness. I was going from point A to point B and I tore up my shoulder, my back, all the things. So much so that I began to go to the chiropractor and physical therapy for that reason and more, right? Oh my gosh, y'all are very familiar with how, or some of you all are familiar with how this podcast got started. The first name was Get My Life Tour. I had left my job, toxic environment in media, was telling people I was getting my life and I was on tour, hence the name, the Get My Life Tour. Fast forward to the top of 2025, April, rebrand, Life Will Be, right? And now here I am recapping my decade in New York, and I'm telling you, don't wear your dress shoes to work because in the long term, it may impact your overall health. I also have just been studying foot health lately for the heck of it. And there's an article on the New York Times about how much dis-ease begins in our feet. And so, yes, pedicures are important, but also overall foot health. Doing little foot exercises like wiggling your toes and balancing your weight or shifting your weight across your feet are essential. So I have to throw that in there. I will never forget, I was trying to step up my game fashion wise. And I was at NBC at the time. And I bought these I ain't even gonna say inexpensive, these cheap shoes offline. I can't even remember what store I got them from, but I just did a haul. The back of those shoes were so hard, they literally tore through the skin on my Achilles heel. I could barely walk. I went to the little office nurse and she gave me some band-aids to put on my feet. I had to stop at my homegirl Carlette's place because I needed to borrow shoes. Like I could not make it any further. So I went from Rockefeller Center to the International House at Columbia because I couldn't make it to 140th. I had to make pit stops because my feet were torn up. You get the point? Take care of your feet. Be mindful of how you get from point A to point B. And there goes that point of community again, right? Making sure that you have established mutually beneficial and reciprocal relationships so that you can be taken care of where you are. You may not always have your family nearby, people that you grew up with, friends who became family, but in adulthood, it is on you to create your family, right? Through strong familial bonds, but also your friends, your lovers, whoever the case may be. So protect your neck in New York City, but also protect your feet. Speaking of feet, walking the city is one of the best ways to learn where it is that you are at all times, right? And not just Manhattan, but wherever it is that you are. But I learned New York City by having that monthly Metro card, but also walking a significant amount. So I am one who will walk from Lower Manhattan, make my way up to Midtown, stop, take a break, go east to west. And there have been countless times where I would make my way back up to Harlem. And people like, Lydia, why are you walking such long distances? Number one, I knew my way around. Number two was therapeutic. It was a great way or it is a great way to clear my mind and explore, third of all. But also, it's a good life skill to have. Knowing your way from east to west, north to south, being able to recognize where you are, having that situational awareness while your head is on a pivot, a swivel. That is a life skill. It is a survival tactic. There are so many different benefits that I've already listed, right? It has been extremely important for me to know where I'm at all times. Before iPhone had the feature to share your location, I had this desire to always know where I was at so that I can communicate that to my loved ones. And there is no better city, in my opinion, than New York City to walk freely and get where you want to be. There is so much to see and experience, but walking has kept me in shape when I had no desire or the money, quite honestly, to have a gym membership. Walk. People will be like, wow, your butt is toned or this, that, and the third. I know that's a little personal, right? But it's because I walked up my 6 flights more than once a day, but also just walking a city. Walking for 30 minutes has incredible health benefits, right? Most people are encouraged to do so. Of course, there's been the 10,000 step rule of wellness. Now they're saying, I think it's 5,000 steps. Get 10,000 if you can, right? Keep your heart healthy, keep your mind healthy, your body moving. Walking New York City is the best way to get to know it. And, seasons of walking has gotten me to where I needed to be without the financial resources. And that is something that I will always keep in my memory bank, right? Because I was able to do it. There is no shame or embarrassment associated with it. And it's a point of pride for me. If I need to be there, I will make a way. It also speaks to that hustle, the grit and ambition. In New York, there's not much room for excuses, right? You hear these stories where people I came to this city or this country with $1 and now I own a portfolio of X worth X amount. And it's wow, I haven't been one for a struggle story, even though I've experienced a lot of it since being here. But those things give you a little fuel too. You're I know what it's like to, and so you can't make excuses. New York and the safety now is kind of me and the train used to go together real bad. Now, not so much. But yes, walking. Yeah, sometimes you just got to walk it out. Speaking of transportation, you see, I'm kind of flowing from theme to theme. Being on time is something that I can be honest about was a bit challenging for me. You're probably wondering why. I like being punctual, but in moments where I didn't realize that I was wrestling with anxiety or high functioning depression or whatever the case may be, when I was really going through it, I realize now, looking back, that was the case, right? And I didn't come to that conclusion myself, okay? But I would be late places. And that was something that I had to check, okay? There were a few key people who brought it to my attention, especially when I was going through it. And I was like, oh, I got to tighten up because not everybody needs to know when you are going through something. But being on time is something that New York will teach you. When I was earlier into my career, there would be places that I got to early and that set me apart. It created space, time, and opportunity for me to connect with the right people. I haven't had any opportunities stifled by being late, but I did realize in moments where I didn't realize I was so heavily in the thick of what I was going through. Me being late did impact, I would say, relationships, with friends and acquaintances and stuff like that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot afford to be late again. And so leave early, be on time. Being late will set you back. And I have been around people who have been so punctual and use time as a currency. Is so inspiring. And I've aspired to be that way since I was exposed to that mentality. And so time is everything. Okay. No one can get it back. And so valuing your time as currency and just having it as a value will take your life to the next level. Okay. No matter what city you're in. Speaking of being in rooms early, I think it's also important to learn what rooms you should be in and what rooms you should not have an aspiration to be in. New York City is a different beast when it comes to networking and navigating your industry. I think most people would agree with that. At some point in your journey, you have to discern where it is that you need to be and who you want to be spending your time with. There's a lot of people who I would call game goofy, pretentious, selfish, or having a selfish ambition. And y'all probably like, wow, Lydia, where are we going with this? I have been in enough rooms to know like who I need to engage with and who is just blowing smoke from every cavity, on their body. And you're probably like, why is this important? Because as you are building community, your network, and establishing who you are, proximity matters. How you spend your time, to that point again, matters as well. But one of the things that can happen when you're in a large city, is the unfortunate ability to begin to compare yourself to others, right? There are people who have it, there are people who don't, who are where you want to be, who are all the things. And so sometimes you get into rooms and you're like, and you don't realize how damaging it can be to enter the wrong room and be off your mark, or to be in a room with people who don't deserve you. And so I don't network as much as I used to. I don't go to the same annual events or vie to sit on stages to either be on a panel or moderate, because I've had my moment. And it's important to know when those moments have ended. Just like seasons for friendship, acquaintanceship, in different industries and spaces. You have to just kind of read the chapter that you are in life. And oh my gosh, New York has been a book that has written itself. Okay. All right. So, I feel like I've shared some things. I think I want to go a little bit deeper. And I think what I'll do with this episode is create a shorter series that's more snackable on social media. So you'll have to follow Life Will Be Pod and my personal account, Lydia T. Blanco, on Instagram to get more of this. Of course, we're going to go deep here, but as I think about all of the things, which I know isn't really possible, but a wealth of things that I've learned over my decade of being in New York, I want to be sure that I'm able to create some tangible things for you all. And you get what you need here, and you can get a little bit more. God is amazing. I probably say that every episode. When I think about who I have become and the things that I have experienced over the last decade, it ain't nobody, it ain't nothing but God who has kept me. I have been hungry. I have been without. I have had my heart broken. I've experienced, acquiring and receiving an Ivy League degree, working at some of the largest media and entertainment companies, and interviewing some of the biggest wigs of them all in business and entrepreneurship and all the things, right? But my character development, my heart development has been the most important thing to me. And Most High has not allowed me to shy away from that or get caught up in any of it. Every pivot, I believe I've become more of myself. And this city and how I've had to show up, and it has helped contribute to that. With that, let me go to a high. One of the greatest gifts New York has given me is lifelong friendships. Women and men who I've met while starting my journey in New York City at Columbia, and just incredible people whose weddings I've been to and cried with, have gone through so many different phases of life over the last decade. I'm just like, wow. Had I not been here, I wouldn't have met those people. And so I am so grateful. I have gotten ghosted in this city early on. Praise God. Praise God. Okay. I think my first 9 months, I think after I got ghosted right after I graduated from Columbia and dated him all throughout. Yeah. So I got ghosted. Hi, if you're watching this. No, I'm kidding. It's not me. Okay. Anyways, I got ghosted, and I told myself that I would just fall in love with myself over and over and over again. And so this city is one that will teach you how to do that, right? Romanticizing my life, creating this theme of Friday dates for myself and my homegirls, going on solo dates, and just learning who I am as I have lived on my own and have had so many different opportunities to create moments for myself. There's nothing like walking past a flower stand, a fruit stand, or a free concert and being able to enjoy those things. Like, let me grab some grapefruits and some mangoes, a couple of bananas, only get like 2 at a time because you don't want them to get bruised, and pick up a small bouquet of carnations for like $10 and walk around the city with them all. It's a different kind of energy and a different kind of vibe. New York City will also break your heart in some of the best ways, I would say, spiritually for other people. Helping people carry their things, their possessions, or their children up and down stairs because no one else will help them. It does something to you. I had this moment where I was helping a man, never will forget his name. His name is Edwin. God bless Edwin. And we were at, I want to say either 72nd or 96th Street. I think we were at 96th. We had to be at 96th Street. Edwin had 2 push carts with his possessions, and he was a little slower to respond to the doors closing on the uptown one, and one of his carts got left behind outside of the doors as he was boarding the train and trying to maneuver 2 at once. And I will never forget how he broke down. He wasn't in his healthiest state, but I was able to get off the train with him. And I was like, if you go down and get your belongings, I'll stay here and watch this. And we talked for a little bit. And I wanted to pray with him, but I understood that it wouldn't really resonate. And so I was like, go up and go down and come back around and all the things. And I think he decided like, it's okay. He probably had lost so much already. But when I say I could not take it, my heart broke so much for Edwin, because while I hadn't had the experience of riding New York City transit and losing things in this space, I have had the experience of being in transition and losing possessions in childhood. Even up until the point where I came to New York, there was a huge housing transition in 2014. And so much of that had hit me in real time. And I was a hot mess on 103rd Street. Like, I had to get off the train platform, and I want to say I walked, from 103rd to 140th, and I just cried. I cried. I couldn't compose myself. I called my sister, and I was trying to explain to her what had happened. But seeing people lose their possessions, even though it's material and some people probably perceive it as being trash or whatever the case may be, was so devastating to me. And there have been so many different moments like that, anticipating a fall and it happening. God has really opened my spiritual eyes while being in this city and has given me a heart for people. I've always had a heart for people, but I feel like I have been battle tested, for the kingdom of the Most High here in the city. And when I reflect, I'm just like, thank you, God, that I was in position to be where I was and who I needed to be for those individuals who I've helped. But it has not been easy. It has not been easy showing up for people in that way. There have been more events than I probably can count. And I always call my mom and my sister afterwards, because I'm just like, I need someone to know what is happening, and I need some comfort right now. And I don't mind it. I'm also not often looking for an opportunity to show up for people in those ways, but God is definitely sovereign. And when He wants you to do something and have a heart for something, He definitely will continue to present opportunities for you to show up for others. New York, so much of who I am has, I guess, just blossomed in this space. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here, to be in community with people, to have the opportunity to fall in love with myself in this city, have my heart open and revealed to who I am. But, I think the biggest thing for me is being able to create home for myself and practice being at home in my body, in my mind, in my spirit, in this city. I mentioned this earlier, but New York has been home and where I've been able to establish home, having housing security and falling in love again with interior design and making things my own. I would say that is the biggest gift I have been able to receive while in the state. Being able to come and go and host and redefine what it means to live on my own terms. I used to wrestle with how many people would visit or the lack of visitors, but it's not about how many people you can host or what your space looks like. It's about how you choose to live. And sometimes it doesn't feel like you always have a choice, but it's about what you choose in here. It's the right side, yeah, and your heart. And beyond the physical space, me building home in my heart, in my mind, in my spirit, and by taking care of my body is what I am looking forward to next the most. I really feel like there's so much more that I could share, but I'm still processing. Lots of excitement, life moments, and just reflecting on God's glory and how I have truly been kept in this space. I'm so grateful. If you read the headlines, you know. And I always put on my armor before I go outside. God is so faithful. I have truly been kept in this city, but I'm looking forward to establishing myself in other ways. Like, wow, 10 years in New York. What? I think that's enough. And so, what is next? God knows. I'm still trying to figure it out, but I am grateful for my time here. And I'm grateful for who I have become. Every day is another opportunity to do what I've been called to do and become who I am all the more. And so I look forward to living freely, loving, growing, all of the good things, only the good things, okay? And life will be, we know that, but it'll also be what you make it. And I plan on making the most of it. Look, I'm going to keep my word and I am going to create a series online. But if I could sum up my experience in New York, I would say no matter the circumstances, make every effort to fall in love with yourself over and over again. After all, life will be. Look, this has been so fun. I have tried to not start over 200 times because while I've had my talking points, I'm like, oh my gosh, did I miss anything? Is there something else to share? Did I get the most important things? We're just going to say, I did. Look, thank you again for tuning in, listening with your heart, being on this journey with me, trusting me with your time, something I do not take lightly. Let me know what resonated with you. There is this feature here on the platform for you to engage in the comments. Let me know on social media. So connect with me at Lydia T. Blanco or Life Will Be Pod. Until the next time, it has been real. Peace.